Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Realms Remembered Episode 5. Alright, so let's talk about Pools of Darkness, which takes place in 1350, and Crystal Shard, which takes place through the early 1350s. You might not think that these two books have much to do with each other, because of course Crystal Shard is, I believe it was the first Realms fiction book. If not, it was very, very close. R.A. Salvatore's first book with Drizzt in it. Huge runaway success. Everybody remembers it fondly. Even I remember it fondly, and I have no idea why I would have read it. I don't think any of my friends liked it. I wasn't into the Realms back then. I kind of poo-pooed writing like this at the time, so I'm not really sure why I even read it, but I did. And at the time, I remember liking it. My main problem, which I mentioned earlier that I had a problem, I'll go ahead and fill it in now since we're here, is the fact that in Crystal Shard we have Drizzt essentially presented as the most awesome badass ever, which, you know, continues on. But he's so amazing that he single-handedly is able to take out a demon. Alright, he has Guinevere help out, but, you know, Guinevere is just an extension of him, much like his scimitars. So I remember finishing that book and trying the second one, Streams of Silver, getting a little ways in, and it was like, really? Like an assassin? That's it? I mean, this dude took out a demon. I feel no dramatic tension whatsoever. However, on a reread with Crystal Shard, it's like that the main bad dude who had called the demon Akar Kessel is like, he's got an army of goblins. So it's like, oh, okay, this is pretty low-level encounter here. This demon must be some sort of like crap third-level demon who's in 7 large to Tony the demon or whatever. It kind of makes me wonder, though, because when he kills, I think his name's Ertu. Ertu screams, you know, 100 years, because, of course, if you kill a corporeal form of a demon or a devil, I don't know, is it both? I don't know, demons, because this happens, well, it kind of happens in Shadow's Witness by Paul Kemp, also, which we'll get to much later. If you kill a demon on the material plane, then you've only killed its corporeal form, and it can't return to the material plane for 100 years, so it screams 100 years, and I'm really curious in the Transitions trilogy, which essentially, if I understand it correctly, takes us from about 1370 all the way up to like 1480 or whatever. I'm really curious if Ertu came back and challenged Drizzt, and if by then Drizzt just is like, are you kidding me? Smacks him and goes away. So why do I group these two books together? What do they have in common? Well, here's the thing. They both have a kind of moronic, pathetic main human character who gets control of a demon that's way smarter and way more capable than them through magical means, and in both cases the demon is kind of put off and annoyed. And in Pools of Darkness, the demon ends up being the bigger threat at the end. In Crystal Shard, of course, Drizzt takes it out because it's friggin' Drizzt, right? What's interesting is they both approach this in different ways, but they are very, very similar, and I believe they came out within a couple of years of each other. So I kind of started thinking, you know, why is it the Pools of Darkness is not as well known as Crystal Shard? Well, there are a few obvious reasons. One is it's not very well written. I was excited about this because it's a different, I don't know how better to say this, it's a different authoress this time around, but it's still James Ward and someone else. And I kind of wonder if back in like 2nd edition, if this was their way of doing what War of the Spider Queen and Ed Greenwood Presents Waterdeep were in 3rd and 4th editions, which was a way for the editor or, you know, someone really well known to kind of spotlight new talent. I'm really wondering if all Ward did was edit this and then the women wrote each of the Pools books. I don't know. I have no idea, but it wouldn't surprise me. If so, this one pretty weak compared to the first one, and I mean the first one was not, you know, it's not going to win any awards, but it was pure entertainment. This one is, it's just skim, because it's like, oh, they find some werewolves. Okay, they're gonna fight them and nothing's gonna happen. There's some weird bits along the way, though. Like, here's the sort of basic thing. That love triangle we had in the first book, you know, it's resolved in the first book. The cleric and the sorceress settle down together, and then the thief goes his own way. Well, the cleric and the sorceress are taking care of Flawn. Flawn gets whooped into this nether dimension, and it's this huge, like, plot of Bane, except, like, the guy who's running the show here somehow screws it up or like goes against what Bane was wanting, and so it's just like under a mountain rather than in Bane's dimension, and somehow this screws everything up. I mean, it's not exactly clear and it seems a little ridiculous, but they had to have a way that it was retrievable, I guess. So the thief comes back and he's like, holy crap, my friends are gone. So he, like, kind of against his will, forms an adventuring party that sets out to find what's going on. So he gets 2 druids, some sort of, I think she was supposed to be a sorceress with the weirdest, like, backstory ever, because she was like, I am gonna kill every pool I see. Like, she had a death vengeance against bodies of water. Very odd. But it's a pools novel, so I guess it works, right? And then there's this undead paladin. Best not to ask. So about, I'd say, almost a half, but slightly less than half of the book is the residents of Flawn, more specifically Tarl and Sharl. Is that right? God, is that really right? That sounds so ridiculous when you say it out loud. Trying to fight the guys who have them trapped there and get away and blah 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 blah. And most of the book, well, at least slightly more than half, is Ren, the thief guy. Though in like the first book, there's this huge like thing about multiclassing, which like there's so many bits of the first book that I didn't share with you because there are just hundreds of them. Like Ren is thinking to himself like, I think I'm going to stop following my thief ways for a while and focus more on rangering. Yes, and like he shares this idea with the party and they're very excited about it. And it's of course like multi-classing, but spelled out in a way that nobody is supposed to think about it, quote unquote, in game. And then I'll just share one more. One of my favorite little segments is when they're trying to decide what they're gonna do next. And I think it's like Charl wants to go on alone or something, and she's arguing with the other two, and it's like, Didida said this, Didida said that, Didida said this. Then they argued some more. And in the end, and it's like, nobody writes like that. That's like 5th grade writing. But whatever, it's amusing, it's fun, and it totally, like, it makes you laugh, and it gets the point across so you can get on to the next scene. Fine. So it's not necessarily quotable in a good way, but it is eminently quotable. The second book is filled with what I find even worse. Now, there's a review on Amazon, going back to the Crystal Shard / Pools of Darkness similarities, that complains a lot about the fact that the bad guys in this have Brooklyn accents. And I'm like, well, Salvatore's bad guys have Cockney accents, so why has nobody ever brought that up? Why does nobody care about that? I mean, he's also got characters named Pickle and Pasha Pook and blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I don't get that, and I think it's odd that people overlook that as long as they enjoy the book overall. But for whatever reason, so this second Pools book, I made some notes. Here's some of the just odd little things from it. Far above Tarl's head, Flawn's spellcaster stood on an enchanted rainbow. Just try to picture that, if you will. Try to picture color-coded spells and think, what does that imply? Okay, here's another great line. You've caused us enough trouble for one lifetime, she cried. This is the end of you! Which totally makes me think of whenever I play RPGs on a video game system, like Wild Arms or whatever, and the bad guys are like just lasting longer than they should because I just can't get a spell to fire off or blah 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 or whatever. I start yelling at the screen literally, I will end you! Because it just adds a little bit of gravitas to the situation, which I think is important. Another quote, not so fast, creature of darkness! So yeah, you have stuff like that all throughout this. But again, you have moments of ridiculousness in Crystal Shard as well, and people view it more favorably. So why? Yes, obviously, the writing is a little bit better, but, I mean, there were some pretty horrible bits in Crystal Shard, and I definitely didn't like it as much as I did the first time through. Like, even just proofreading errors. I was reading it in the collector's edition, the, like, giant trilogy paperback, which came out much later. It had the little, like, Drizzt thought bits at the beginning in italics like the later stuff did, added to it. So it obviously had gone through at least a couple of proofreaders by then, and I found the wrong grizzly. They came upon a grisly scene, except instead of it being bloody, there were apparently bears involved. And compliment. The compliment with an I was used when it meant the compliment with an E. Like, I think Aegis Fang complimented Wulfgar's attire, which is odd that Aegis Fang apparently could talk and told him he looked good. whatever. So I was seriously curious about this. I mean, the two books have so much in common. Even like the fact that for most of the climax, Drizzt is separated from the main party. So we have two separate plot lines going on leading up to the climax. Just tons and tons of stuff. So I thought, what makes Salvatore's stuff jump out? Of course he was, I believe, the first book published, so there's that, and that gives him kind of an edge, I think. But beyond that, something that I've noticed with almost everything that we've read up to this point, even the stuff that we've skipped, I believe, everybody, 90% of our characters are humans. Even in Pool of Darkness, where we get the skeleton, the undead paladin, still an undead human. Salvatore jumps feet first into having, I mean, our main cast is a dark elf, a halfling. The only human we have in our main party, the only humans we have in our main party are Wolfgar, who's a barbarian and not like the other humans, and Catti-brie, who was raised by a dwarf, so she's more a dwarf. So our main party is dwarf, halfling, elf. And it makes it feel, I don't know, like a fantasy novel. It's pretty awesome. I gotta admit that. So I really wonder if that's the reason that Salvatore is more popular than a lot of these earlier books. I guess I shouldn't say Salvatore, but Crystal Shard especially is more popular than a lot of these other books that came out around the same time, especially Pools of Darkness, considering it has damn near the same plot. On a side note, I did think it was odd that followers of Bane had Brooklyn accents. I mean, it's like Salvatore uses, I think they're Knowles or something like that. I think they call them Verbeegs, have the Cockney accents, so it feels a little more like, okay, they're minions, whereas giving Bane cultists Brooklyn accent, a little odd, but whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the bad guys are supposed to be kind of stupid, so they get silly accents. It makes sense. It reads fine. So yeah, that's definitely one thing that is really noteworthy about Salvatore, is the fact that he just absolutely takes on different races and embraces that, whereas most of these other things don't really, which is sad and weird. Crystal Shard overall, nothing great, really overwritten, which seems to be Salvatore's kind of way. Like, just a very short sort of background on what I like in fantasy. My favorite series in fantasy by far, and some of my favorite literature by far, is the Malazan Book of the Fallen series by Steven Erikson. And I've gotten kind of spoiled by him with not having stuff spoon-fed to me. Like, there are dozens, if not hundreds of times where we'll get a line like, Bruenor looked at Drizzt and raised his eyebrows, and I'm like, okay, there, I absolutely know everything that's going on, you don't need to say anything more, and then he will explain, bit by bit, mote by mote, exactly why Bruenor is doing that, what it means, how Drizzt interprets it, just not giving us the benefit of the doubt on anything. It gets really frustrating. I will say, however, that the beginning of, I can't remember if it's book 2 or book 3, it must be book 2 in Crystal Shard, book meaning section. They're called, you know, it has like 3 quote-unquote books inside the book. The bit where Wolfgar goes and fights the dragon and the few chapters following that are incredibly well written. It's odd. Those few chapters feel like they're from a different book. All of a sudden it just gets really good. So I have no idea why that is, if that's something that Salvatore, I don't know if that's where he started, if that's he came back and edited that multiple times, somebody else edited it multiple times, or it just, for whatever reason, reads well to me. But that section especially, he can be proud of till the day he dies. He can be proud of all of it, I don't care. I wish him only good things. So, that went on a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I hope this has raised some questions for you, made you think, and I hope you'll get back to me with your thoughts on all of this that we've covered here. I'd be very curious to see what you think, because I think damn near everybody has read the Crystal Shard, it seems like. I mean, even people don't know what the realms are seem to have read Crystal Shard at some point in their life. So did you like it for the same reasons I kind of liked it, or for different reasons? Did you dislike it? Let me know. I really do want to know what other people think. We're coming up upon a section of time here where we're going to get like almost 6 or 7 Legend of Drizzt books in a row. And the problem is I can't read 2 or 3 of those at once because it's going to get really confusing when I don't know what happened in the last book and things are going on. So I might be out of commission for a little while, but I'm reading as much as I can and filling in a lot of spaces, and I've read a decent portion of stuff that's coming up here. So I'm hoping, even if we have to kind of just keep coming back to the Drizzt stuff, I'll keep getting these out in a decent time frame. So enjoy, thanks very much, and I will see you next time. on Realms Remembered.